a little more, a little more on holding the pencil. First thing you want to make sure of is that you do have a pencil that's sharpened nicely, so it has a nice long tip like that. One of the main aspects about variety and holding a pencil is being able to hold the pencil mostly on its side so that you can create a thick stroke from the entire tip. And then depending if you want to make more of a straight line or what I want to say, a skinny line, you can hold it more at an angle. But it's not like one is inherently better than the other or one is worse. But different scenarios will call for different sorts of holds, and different people will be more comfortable with different holds. So it's partly up to you to just try a bunch of different things and practice and see what is the most comfortable. That said, here's a few things that I talk about when I teach about holding the pencil. First, I do try to get folks to get a experiential learning experience. Can you say that? About being able to draw a straight line. You know, a lot of people come and say, I can't even draw a straight line. Straight lines are hard to draw, and I do like to say a few things right from the get-go. If you see me drawing, you're going to see that I'm sort of pretending that my finger is a pencil. And I am, by using my finger as a quote-unquote pencil, I'm able to create a pretty straight line. I am sort of going back and forth. I'm changing the amount of pressure. I am changing the speed a little bit. I'm kind of finding what seems comfortable. If I start pressing too hard, it's going to stop and, give me a blister. But besides that, the notion of holding basically all of my arm, you can't see my entire arm, but I'm not moving, I'm not shifting my fingers, I'm not pivoting at my fingers, I'm not pivoting at my wrist. I'm trying to pretty much just pivot at my shoulder. I'm using my elbow a little bit. But this is a good way to sort of practice the notion of getting very used to both having something in contact with the paper so that you have an anchor, a stability that creates a much sturdier feel when you are drawing. And the other thing that it creates is something that I can't remember right now, so I'm going to keep going. But who knows? So shifting from that to drawing with a pencil, I have folks just sort of hold the pencil like this and pretend that their finger is a pencil. There's plenty of folks who sort of draw beautiful stuff being a professional term, stuff like by holding a pencil like this. And it's a completely legitimate way to hold a pencil. It's fun to sort of literally kind of pretend that your finger is a writing implement. My fingers are somewhat in contact with the paper. They're in contact with the paper. I'm not shifting my wrist or anything right here. And as you can tell, I'm not even pressing down. I'm in contact with the paper, and I'm sort of practicing. I'm thinking about the stroke that I'm going to make. So that's one aspect, is making sure that your hands, your fingers, and your wrist are still. That's one way. The notion of holding your pencil like you're writing your name is another way, obviously, to hold a pencil. That's a great way for well, for writing, for first of all, but for getting strong detail and being able to shift the angle of the pencil to more of a perpendicular to the paper plane. I will say when you're holding it up close to the tip, like when you're writing, it is hard. It's hard to make a consistent sort of soft, light line, which is why sometimes I will shift a little bit further down the pencil, still holding it in sort of that kind of writing grip. What you're going to find is in this writing grip, you are shifting your fingers, you're pivoting with all those different fingers, and with every sort of joint that is being used, there's a potential for something to not be sort of smooth, or I don't know what, more error, room for error sort of thing, more moving parts. But we're very familiar with this sort of style of writing your name, so it's definitely has a purpose. I will also sometimes go way back on the pencil, and this is something I will use if I'm trying to be more gestural, if I'm trying to use a really light tone. I'll show another way of holding it that I like more. But this holding it like a pencil, both midway and towards the back, I feel like is a really great way to make relatively short, straight lines. You'll see I'm still using my fingers. I'm not, you could certainly do that, but even just by sort of going back and forth like that, you can make a relatively straight line. If I kept using my fingers and sort of pivoted where my palm is, my hand is touching the paper, I'll obviously start making an arc. So, but you can get pretty straight doing that. The third way, so that was one, this is two, with its variations. The third way is, holding it fancy, like a fancy snooty artist, which is more of a grip like this. And what this is very good for is having a really nice ability to hold the pencil at an angle to where it's quite parallel with the paper plane, so you really can shade in stuff pretty easily. You'll see sometimes I roll my pinky around, sometimes I have it like this, depending on what sort of mark I'm making. The and like the what was I going to say? Like the notion of moving down the pencil to have sort of a different feel. If you do move down, sometimes I'll want to be more gestural if I'm either drawing on a bigger piece of paper or I'm wanting just a looser mark in general. I'll hold it a little bit further down. At that point, I'm actually kind of shifting my hold, and it's basically just to keep being able to be in charge of having the pencil relatively, like I said, parallel. So sometimes I'll hold the pencil like that. This part is in contact with the paper. You're gonna find out that once you want to draw something over here, I don't even know if this is on camera or not, but off the paper over here, it helps to have some sort of big board that you can use for an anchor and stability for your hand. And the last thing, sometimes I'll literally hold it more or less like with this, what, baton, I'm not quite sure what to call that. I'm sure it has a fancy art name. Um, but I might hold it way back at the tip like that. And that's usually when I am really, really, really trying to block something in really light. I feel like when you're holding it way down at the tip like this, it's easy for to basically hold it almost like, you know, somebody could knock it out of your hands, or it would fall out of your hands, and you can make such a light mark, but still have pretty good control. I wanted to say one last thing, and that was the notion of, I'm not sure if I already said it, but when I am making straight lines, maybe I already did, but I will hold it like that when I am making straight lines vertical, if it doesn't have to be too long. And oftentimes if I'm making a horizontal mark, I am shifting so that it's not quite the same, and I'm doing this hold where it's more that my wrist is not moving, and I'm just pivoting at my elbow and creating a straight line that way. You can certainly do that this way to make a longer line, but sometimes if you're sort of just in a groove with certain things, it's a nice thing to be able to go back and forth between just using your fingers like that to make a short straight mark versus engaging your entire arm. It's a little bit more on holding pencils. Check it out.